G'day guys, welcome back to another video. This is part one of a couple of part Bream series we're doing. It's kind of taking it back to one of the Bream series we did a few years back, a 3-part Bream series which has been really popular. But things have changed. There's a lot more gear on the market now. There's way more toys in the shop. Probably one of the biggest Bream ranges in the state of the country. There's so much to choose from. So what we're going to do in this part is we're going to go through the rods, the reels, the line and the leader. All the main stuff you need to get out there and go fishing. Part two, we'll take a look at lures and techniques. But for today, we're going to go through the racks, go through rods one by one, different reels, match them all up and let you know what you're going to need to go out and catch Bream from an entry level price point to your top end and everything in between. So there's a lot of different rods to choose from, but we're going to start with what is probably the best value for money light tucker rods on the market, and that's the Daiwa Infeet S rods. So we've got a bunch of different options down here. They range in different lengths and different tapers, 2-piece, 1-piece butt joints. So with the Infeet range of rods, the black and red version indicates a faster taper. Now a faster taper essentially means the rod bends more at the tip and less throughout the midsection and the bottom of the blank. Typically that's pretty good for soft plastics, but you can use them as a bit of an all-rounder. They tend to be a rod you can cast and punch pretty hard. This one here is a 2-piece mid-join, 7'5". This is a really good flats outfit. We've also got a bunch in here which will do things like jerk baits as well, crank baiting. We've got the blue and white ones here. So these ones are typically the slower taper rods. So when you pick up a rod in the shop and give it a wiggle, the ones that feel like they move all the way through the rods are generally slower taper. And when we pull on that, that's bending evenly with a nice parabolic curve all the way through the middle of the rod. And I can feel it bending all the way down in my hand. The reason that's good is if we're using hard bodies, say we're throwing a crankbait on the flats, and when you hook a fish with those little treble hooks, you've got 6 little points, you want to keep those in the fish's mouth. Sometimes when you're using a faster tapered rod, like these red ones, it'll pull the hooks out a bit too easily. You don't have as much of a cushion there when that fish shakes its head and goes for a run. So that's where this shines. Likewise, what I was just saying, with the red rods, they tend to shine more on the soft plastics. You have a few more rods to choose from within that red range, 6'10", 7-footers. There's kind of one to suit everyone's purpose in there. Great value. I think they're only $209. Like, they are a fantastic value rod and one that most people start out with. Even guys who are accomplished anglers will still use these rods in their quivers. If you're looking to spend just that little bit more, the Infeet Z range is then where you're going to start looking. What you're getting when you spend more money essentially is you're getting a high quality blank and high quality guides, better components. You're also getting a bit more to choose from as well. With these Infeet Zs, you can see they're a nice split butt there. They've got the little thumb grip on the top. So these are running the stainless silicon guides as opposed to the Faz lights on the Infeet S's, so a high quality of guide. Up in the tip section here, they actually run a titanium guide, which is ultra light. The idea behind titanium is that it's a much lighter metal and has a lot more transmission of any vibrations or any movement, so you can feel a lot more of what your lure's doing and also what the fish are doing to your lure. These have a bunch of different options. Again, we have the red version, which are generally the faster taper models, and then the blue versions, which are the slower taper models. But you just have more choice. And you can feel when you pick them up, they're nice and light, very responsive. You find because of their guides they recover nice and quickly, which is going to give you, in performance, a better cast, more feel, and essentially is catching more fish. Now, if you were spending and you wanted to go top of the tree, Daiwa would do the Infeet EX. Actually, no. We have the SK models. This is actually one of my personal favourites. I'm a big fan of these. These are one of the better value high-end rods that we do. SK stands for skeleton grips. So skeleton grips are one of those things out there that divide people. I personally love them. They're very low profile, hard grip, transmit a lot of the vibration and feel from the blank directly into your hand, so you get a really nice feeling. These run the same, really good components, but the difference here is we're running AGS guides. So it's the air guide system. They're a carbon framed guide, even lighter again than titanium, even more transmission of that vibration and feel in the water. These have a few different options as well, ranging in those blue to red, fast taper, slower taper, or slower taper, fast taper. and are really, really nice rods. I personally have one of these which I use for straight through fluorocarbon, one of the lighter ones in the blue model, and it is a pleasure to use. But then if you wanted to go top of the tree, then you have the EX range. So again, better blanks again, better resins in the blanks, and then running the guides. So we have titanium guides with an AGS tip. So that's the best guides that you can get. And we follow the same system. It's nice and easy with the Daiwa system. If you pick up a blue rod, generally a slower taper. You pick up a red rod, generally a faster taper. We'll go through once we get to the reels, and we'll pair some of these rods up and give you a bit more in-depth dive into some of them. But this is a really good overview of some of the rods in the range. Again, in the EXs, you have probably the most choice of different tapers, and that's because as you get into these higher end rods, a lot of anglers are looking for something that's specific. It's not just a rod to go fishing and catch light tackle fish like brim, flathead. It's something that you want to go and throw just a jerk bait with, or just top water with, just vibes, just one particular type of soft plastic. You can really narrow down a rod's taper to get just the right technique specific sort of feel for what you want to do and ultimately catch more fish. Do you have to do that? No, but really good rods if you get up there. We also have some other brands other than Daiwa, which we're going to move back this way. Hopefully Luke doesn't fall over. And that is the Millerods. Now Millerods, no secret, one of my favourite rods. I've got, I think, 5 of them in my quiver at the moment. They make a fantastic rod. Millerods are built around being that technique specific kind of rod. So the first one we'll pick up here, this is a Brawler. That one's 6'7". It is a short nugget of a rod with an ultralight tip, but plenty of power down below. I use this thing for pretty much any structure scenario. Typically it doesn't actually matter if you use trebles or not. If you're fishing structure, you want to get the fish out. If you pull hooks, too bad, so sad. That's just an extraction rod. Very accurate short casts, getting in where the lure needs to be. These millers here, the ones we're talking about, also run titanium frame guides. So it gives you that, not that one, it gives you that ultimate feel, all the premium components on these rods. The majority of them run the skeleton grips, as you can see there. Very finesse, a lot of transmission of the feel through the blank of the rod. That one there's the Twitchfreak 6'10". Awesome rod for throwing things like jerk baits. I've done a bit of everything with that rod, but yeah, jerk baits and tip down top waters when you're on the front of a boat, really good. That length and the taper, it's quite a regular tapered rod, but still with plenty of power. There's heaps more to choose from in here. They're all jumbled up at the moment. What do we got? That's your Bladefreak. So this is essentially like a longer version of the Twitchfreak, 7'3". I love that one for, as the name says, throwing blades, throwing vibes. I've used it a bit for slow rolling cranks as well on a pinch. It's really good for top waters. I prefer it for top waters. It has that slightly softer tip. You can rip bent minnows really, really well with it. In there somewhere as well is a Grubfreak, which is a really nice softer tipped rod, but it's very fast action. So that's good for, there we go, Grubfreak. Slow rolling soft plastics, but then once that tip loads up, setting a hook and driving it home really, really hard is an absolute pleasure to use. It's probably one of the first rods I go to and pick up when I'm out fishing. There's a heap more in that range as well. As I say, we'll put some combos together after, but we'll keep moving through to the next range of rods. We have, in this shop, we do love high-end tackle, and Maraga is one of our most popular light tackle rods that we sell by a long way. They're very different to a lot of the rods that are on the market in the Australian market. So these are a handmade Japanese rod, a very premium product. And when you pick them up, you can feel straight away they are incredibly light. They are probably some of the lightest rods I've ever felt. Very, very good at casting and that transmission of the feel through the rod. They have typically a slower taper. So when you go to load these up, pretty much across the range, you'll generally find they're quite soft in the tip, but they do have a surprising amount of power through the middle section and the lower end of the rod. But they are generally a slower tapered rod. The specs on these rods are very precise. When it says it's going to cast whatever it says, it will cast it. They're very, very good at what they say they do. The one we're looking at here are the Blue Current range. That is their base model range, Blue Current 3. So these are a really nice blank. They come with stainless silicone guides. Very, very nice, especially for the price to get a handmade rod. You're looking at a really, really good value for money option. anything from sort of 5'3" or 6'3" all the way up to 8'2", so you can kind of cover a lot of bases within that light tackle realm, whether it be brim or flathead or whiting, whatever it might be, giant herring even. They are really, really nice rods. Stepping up from them, we come to the blue current as well, but it's the TZ Nano. So TZ Nano essentially means Torzite guides, titanium Torzite. So titanium is the frame, Torzite is the ceramic insert in the ring, and the Nano is just the resin. So it's a high quality resin within the blank. Ultralight again, even more transmission through those titanium guides. You feel every little knock and bump. The blank recovery is just that much better. As there's less weight on the blank, that blank recovers better when you're casting, better when you're fighting fish, better when you're working lures. Just all around gives you a lot more feel and control. And that's what it's about with these kinds of rods. When you're spending this kind of money, is your technique specific, the most amount of feel, control, everything you need to all those 1%ers, half percenters to catch more fish. That's why you would use rods like this. Also, if you just love tackle like I do. There's a heap of rods in this range to choose from, anything from, I think it's 6'3" all the way up to 9'3", so there's a lot of rods to choose from. So we'll touch quickly on BFS, which is the bait finesse system. It's kind of the new craze in the last 12 months of targeting things like brim and flathead and whiting on bait casters. Stuff you wouldn't normally be able to target with a traditional bait caster with lures, just simply because they can't cast light enough. So we have a great reel here, it's the Daiwa Gecko Pigeon, which we'll show you later. But they match up really nicely to rods like this. So this one here is a Ripple Fisher. This is a 77. Beautiful rod, has a really broad cast range from everything up to about 2 grams length to 15 or 17 grams. So covers a lot of bases. These are wicked for casting on structure, things like mussels on bridge pylons, swim baits in the open, things like little Gangcraft 70s, which we'll touch on in the next video. It really just, it's another challenge. It certainly has its benefits in terms of power of reeling in structure, control, those kind of things, but it is another, it's just one of those things, if you're really into your light tackle fishing, you need to try BFS. It's another challenge, getting the casting and the lures and the techniques. It's a really good one to look into. Yamaga and Ripple make some really nice options, as well as Daiwa. Keep an eye out for some Daiwa gear coming out for that stuff very soon as well. But yeah, it's just a quick touch on that. It's a small little market, but it's definitely something that if you're into your light tackle fishing, look into it. It's a lot of fun. So going with your rod, you are going to need a reel, and there are a few you can choose from. Basically, there are 3 sizes. There's the 2000 here, which is essentially the same as a 1000, it just has a different spool capacity, and then a 2500 size. And within the 2500 sizes, there are a couple of variations which we will go through with you, which will help you decide which one you're going to use. But basically all those rods we picked, they'll balance okay with either size of these reels. It really comes down to a bit of a preference and what you prefer out of the features we're about to go through as to what you'll stick on your rod, and really ultimately when you put the reel on the rod, you'll know when you feel it, if that's the kind of reel for you. So beginning here with the 2000 size, this is a 2000 size shallow. So 2000 size has a smaller body, and this one here, the S on this spool stands for shallow spool. Shallow spool is preferred for lure fishing. You don't need 300 meters of line. It's just unnecessary for brim. You're not going to get smoked that far. They're going to run you to the nearest stick or rock. So a shallow spool holds typically about 150 meters of a certain PE line. So for a 2000 shallow like this, it's going to hold 150 meters of PE 0.6. And PE 0.6 is just the diameter of the line, which once we get to line, we'll run through that as well. It'll hold 200 meters of PE 0.4. So they're your 2 main line classes that'll be run on the reels. Some will do PE 0.8 and even PE 1, but typically 0.6 is the sweet spot. So that's going to hold plenty of line. Being a shallow spool as well, they also have a more finesse drag system. So comparing to a deep spool reel, they typically have, in the Daiwa range here, that deep spool reels typically have about a 10 kilo drag. Like this one here. This isn't a deep, this is a standard spool, but this one has a 10 kilo drag. That shallow spool had a 5 kilo drag. So essentially think of it as each click is a bit more finesse with the shallow spool. You're going to get more fine-tuned adjustment compared to a deeper spooled reel. When we compare, and this is where we're going to get into a little bit of a few differences, a 2000 here to a 2500, Now this is a Revelry and a TD Black, but it doesn't matter, it's the same across the reels. You can see the gearboxes down here. That's your 2000 gearbox on the Revelry, and that's your 2500. You can see it's a physically larger diameter and thicker gearbox. That's one of the main differences when you jump into a full-size 2500 reel. You're going to get a little bit more powerful cranking power if you like to just wind fish at a heavy cover. That's where you might go for a 2500 size reel. This one is also the deep spool that we mentioned, so this one has that extra drag capacity as well as a lot of line capacity. In the brim world of things, you don't really need a reel with that much capacity. You would choose, in that instance, this one here, which is your 2500 shallow spool. Maintains that big gearbox, but with the shallower spool for the correct line capacity and that more finesse drag system, which 5 kilos is more than enough. Where we start to run into some differences is in the FC or finesse custom range of reels, which once we get to the Revelry stage and above, there's a little bit of a variation. So this one here is the Revelry 2500 shallow spool finesse custom. But the difference being when we put these side by side is, I'll hold it that way for you, you can see the gearboxes are different. So even though this is a 2500, this Revelry, it actually runs the gearbox from a 2000 size reel. Makes it a bit more finesse, a little bit lighter, but it runs the 2500 size rotor and the 2500 size spool. So why would you do that? Well, lightens the reel up. You don't necessarily need a massive gear set, but it gives you the extra line control and that you'd get and capacity from having a bigger rotor and a bigger spool, bigger loops coming off. Your line's going to come off and cast a bit better. The bigger rotor is going to put more line back on that reel. So it's a bit of a best of both worlds when you go for the finesse custom, whereas your full-size 2500 has that much bigger gearbox. So that's one of the main things when you see FC on a reel. Finesse custom, that's what you're looking at. It's a different size gearbox with the bigger spool and rotor. In terms of what you choose, there's also a gear ratio difference. With brim reels, they're typically, or these light tackle reels, they're typically a slower speed reel. When you're retrieving your lures, your plastics, your hard bodies, whatever it is, typically you want to go slow. So having a slower speed reel definitely helps in that. You don't have to get something super slow. There are reels out there. Again, once you start spending a little bit more money, say starting at the Certates and up, you can get the P or the power gear ratio models, which slows it down even further again. So a lot of these reels will be anywhere between sort of 5.1, 5.2 to 1 retrieve ratio. And that's a pretty stock standard gear. Your P models are typically like a 4.8 or a 4.9. So a bit slower. So every turn of the handle, that rotor spins around 4.8 or 4.9 times versus 5.1, 5.2 or 5.7 or 6.2. So you're going to get less line back on the reel. So if you're finesse crankbaiting, for example, and you want to keep that lure right in front of that fish for as long as possible, that's where you might go to a P-geared reel. But that gets into a little bit more specific and specialized things, which is why you tend to find it in the higher end reels, which are then matched beautifully to a high-end crankbaiting rod. There are different body materials which you don't really need to get too hung up on. A lot of, again, with the Daiwas, you have the Zion, which is like a carbon composite. Certates, they have a different alloy, sort of, I'm not sure what it is, but it's an alloy versus the magnesium alloy of the Exist and the Airity. All are good, all do their purpose well. You don't really need to worry about that too much with Bream. They're not going to start bending out reels and stressing it out, so they're all really, really well made for the job. But you know, sometimes if you want to be heavy duty structure fishing, that's where you potentially go for a Certate with that metal body. That way you're just absolutely eliminating no chance of flex or any play there, and you're kind of doing exactly what it needs to do for the job. I don't think there's much else to go over with those reels. We'll move over to the line and show you the line and explain a bit about that and the differences and what you might go for to match these reels. So I've just run around the shop and picked out a handful of my favourite braids. And it's hard because I do like I've used a lot of different braids and like a lot of different braids. But this is probably, what have I got there? 6. This would be my top 6 different types of braids. So they're in no particular order here. You'll notice though the recurring theme is these are all X8s minimum. There's nothing wrong with an X4, but if you want the best performance I find out of lures and you don't want to listen to your line whirring around the guides all day, an X8 is where you want to be. But if all you can get is an X4, that's absolutely fine. And there's options in there as well, which will do that just fine. Oh, Jeez. Anyway, before I was interrupted, I think we're talking, so X braid. This is one of my favorite braids. It's a really, really nice slick X8. It's green, it's got white marking every so many meters. Really nice braid to cast, very strong. These are all, again, you'll also notice I've picked out, they're all PE 0.6. That's my favorite all-round diameter. It's not too thin where it causes you issues with tangles and wind knots, but it's not too thick where you start to lose distance with all the rods and reels and lures that you're going to be using. So you can go to 0.4, you can go to 0.8, you can even go to 1 if you really want to, but I find 0.6 is the best diameter to go for. Typically out of a good quality 0.6, you'll get a breaking strain of anywhere between 10 and 14 pounds. Just take that as a bonus. Treat it like you would traditionally treat like a 6-pound line. That's how I like to look at it. But all that extra breaking strain, that's just a bonus. You can pull pretty hard and know that you're not going to pop your braid. It's not going to be your weakest link. So that one's the X braid. That's a favourite of mine. At the moment, I have started using a lot of that Varivas Eggy. I used to use it years ago, and I'm using it again, and I've found it's a really nice line. Again, just like the others, it's nice and slick, casts beautifully. What I like about it, though, is the colour scheme. It's a white line, and it has a marking, I think it's every 2 or so meters, like a purple and pink marking, and that acts really well as a bite indicator. If you're fishing slack line on a piece of structure and you don't want to have contact with your lure directly, but you need to see when the bite comes, having that bite indicator, you really notice it when it ticks off and moves off. So that's a really good option for that kind of fishing. It's made for squid fishing, which is why it's got a bite indicator, but I find it really works well for brim fishing. Similar sort of line, again, Varivas, the Max Power PE. This one's bright green. I really like this one as well. It feels very similar and behaves very similarly to that Varivas Eggy. It's just green. Again, green like that X braid. Nice bright colours, very easy to see when you're getting bites or where your line is, and you can do a lot of line management. Lines that are hard to see, I find, it's you want to see your line easily. You want to be able to know where your line is, what it's doing at all times, so you can manage it, not be wrapped around things or miss any bites. Probably the most popular line we sell in the store, and for good reason, is the J-Braid Expedition. So that's your 0.6. Now it says 8 pound on there, but it actually has it down there in kilos at 5.2, so it's a bit over 10 or 11 pounds. So that's its true breaking strain at max. So it's still a really high quality line, nice and slick, bright orange in colour, and really, really good value for money in the 150 metre schools. Probably the most popular option we sell, and yeah, I've used this for a bit, and it's a really nice slick line, casts well, no issues with wind knots, anything like that. If you're into a premium line, like a really premium line, the new Saltiga 12, I've been using this for a little bit as well, and it is a nice line, 12 strands. You wouldn't think 8 strands can get any slicker, but 12 strands get slicker again. Beautiful, beautiful line. Again, great breaking strain, 0.6, up at 13, 14 pound. You're not going to have to worry about that at all. This one's grey with, you probably can't see it, but it's grey with little orange marks every so often. Again, acting as that bite indicator. Beautiful line. These run the it's the DuraSense, so it has that tough coating on it. It's a bit of a silicone coating on it. Same with the Expedition as well. Helps that line to be going in and out smoothly, and helps to protect it from the salt crystals that get in there and eventually deteriorate your line. And then, oh, dominoes. Lastly, we have the Taz line. It's a really popular line. It's a pretty cool line. That's what it seems like. It's white. It's like a raw line. It doesn't have any coatings in it. Has a super high breaking strain. I do find it is slightly thicker than what it says on the box. So your 0.6 might be closer to 0.8. Your 0.4 is closer to 0.6. But offers really good performance. I run this on some of my reels for the inshore saltwater as well, with the 0.6, and it goes really, really well. Casts nicely, super strong, super tough, and pretty durable as well. The only thing to watch out for is wide and dirtier water. You might want to grab yourself some of the PE conditioner because it can discolour a little bit if that bothers you, but overall a really, really nice braid. There's heaps more braids there you can choose from, X4s and different brands and niche brands. We've got a few of them in here, but that's probably of all my reels at home, that's what I rotate between, and I find them all really, really nice lines that cast well and perform really well. Last thing we're going to touch on is the leaders, and that's one of the more important things that's going to connect you to the fish. So we'll roll down there and have a look at those. Just remembered as we walk down here, straight through fluorocarbon. It's a little bit different to using your normal leader, and it's definitely different to using a braid. It's kind of kind of like using mono and leader at the same time. It's how do I explain it? So straight through fluorocarbon, it's quite stretchy like a mono, but it has the properties of obviously a fluorocarbon, so it's very hard to see in the water, and it has a slightly harder coating. But your spinning fluoros, so this one's a Tollus, your spinning fluoros, like your J-thread here, they're typically a little bit softer than you'd find in your leader materials. The leader materials tend to be a little bit stiff, a little bit harder. These are designed and based around casting long distances. And the reason you would use one of these is in a ultra finesse situation, super pressured waters, very clear, bright sunshine. The fish are there, but they're just not biting. This is just about the most finesse way you can present a bait to them without them seeing it. Braid and leader with a knot tends to cast a shadow as you cast. This doesn't cast anywhere near as much of a shadow, doesn't show up in the water as much, and is really good for that approach. It's also really good for things with trebles, like your crankbaits and stick minnows and that kind of thing. Because it's got a bit of stretch in it compared to your braid, it does absorb a lot of the shock of the fish taking your lure and head shaking and running, and tends to keep those little hooks in their face or in their mouth a bit better. Combine that with one of those softer rods we talked about, and you're onto a pretty good winner for fishing treble baits. So that's your straight through fluoros. There's a few to choose from with the J-thread, the Sunline. Autolus is a bit of a mixture of both, but that's a really good option as well to consider. But onto the leaders. Again, lots to choose from. Leaders is a bit of a personal preference, and it's a little bit of try one of each and see what you like. Some are a little bit softer than others. Some are a little bit harder. Some tie knots a little bit better, but some are more abrasion resistant. You kind of got to go through them and try them out. With the leaders, you want to have them in as many increments as possible. You might think that, for example, 3 and 4 pound, oh, there's a pound difference. It's next to no difference, but there is a lot of difference. It's 25% different. It's quite a bit of difference in diameter and strength and the way you fish this on the rod. Same as when you go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7, all the way up to 8 or even 10 pound line. There is quite a difference. And some companies now are actually putting a PE rating on there, which really helps. So you have the traditional breaking strain, but the PE, which tells you again the thickness of that line as it's going on there. So you can tell that your thick line's obviously going to have more abrasion resistance. These ones here actually, I really like these. This is Yamamoto Chinu Harris. One of the things I like about it is the fact that the spools come out of the packet and they actually snap together. So you can store them really easily within your tackle box, and they pack down nice and small in a little roll, and makes it very convenient. There's the V-Hard down here. This is one of my favorites. It's just really abrasion resistant, one of the most abrasion resistant fluoros that I've personally used. It comes in all the weights you'd need. The FC Rock is a very popular one from back in the day. It tends to be a bit of a softer fluoro. A lot of people like to use it, casting with it as well, but it tends to be quite soft and supple and quite finesse. And then you have the X-Link, which I think is one of the best all-rounders if you're just looking for one to do the job. The X-Link is really good. The abrasion resistance is great. The knot tying is great. It's not too hard, not too soft. It's a really good sort of in-between of a few of these different leaders. But really, you just got to grab one and give it a go. They're all going to perform well as a fluorocarbon for keeping your line and your bait protected from the sticks or the rocks or the fish. You just got to give them a go and see which one works best for you. To finish off, I've just gone around and picked out 3 combos at 3 different price points, and believe me, it was hard just to pick 3 that I would go out and use happily tomorrow. Like, there's some really nice outfits here. So to begin with, we have the Infeet S. This is the 702 butt jointed rod, and I've matched that up with a TD Black 2,500 shallow. This is, for the price, one of the best combos you can put together to get into lure fishing. It does a bit of everything really, really well and doesn't break the bank. Now, we can get combos for less than this. We can get them for more, but for this price point here, I think you are getting the best value for your dollar. That's something that a tournament angler could go out and use tomorrow and not worry about. So this is a really, really nice, good value for money combo. If we wanted to step up a little bit from there, I think this is where the best overall value is in terms of if you want high-end stuff without going to super, super high-end prices. This is an Infeet SK. This particular one is the 722 LRS. I think this blank is a really good all-round blank. It's designed for heavy-duty crankbaits, But I think it's really good and doubles as a rod that can slow roll soft plastics as well. It's not super slow like you'd think a crankbaiting rod would be. This is matched up with a Revelry 2,500 shallow again. This is the Finesse Custom, so it's got that smaller gearbox like we spoke about. This reel, air drive design, all the features, really, really nice combo. Match that with any of the Braids we spoke about, or the straight through fluorocarbon skeleton grips. This is an absolute winner for that mid price point. And then finishing off with a combo that is probably one of the first that I pick up when I go out fishing. I have this combo, I use it all the time. This is the Millerods Grubfreak, 7'3". Really, really good rod for obviously slow rolling soft plastics, twitching soft plastics. I use it for a bit of other things as well, but if you just want to go out and catch fish and throw a soft plastic, this thing is just made for it. It's perfect. I like matching mine up with the Certate. I'm quite rough on where I wind and my wind gets through, so I like having that metal body of the reel. Really nice and rigid. Certate drags are beautiful and smooth. This again is the 2500 shallow, the FC, so it does have that smaller gearbox. Beautiful drag on it, air drive, alloy body, skeleton grips on the Miller, titanium guides. This thing is a pleasure to use, and I love going out. Every time I use it, I pick it up pretty much first thing and cast lures with it. It is a really, really nice combo. So many more rods in there that I would have, and a fishing room at home is full of them, but if I was picking 3 at each price point, that's a really good place to be. That was a lot of information. There's still plenty more to come, but digest a bit of that. Come into the shop, have a yarn. We have shops in Myaree, Beckenham and Osborne Park. You can get all the gear online at tackwest.com.au. Give us a call, come in. We're more than happy to chat about it. I love this stuff. This is really what I love doing the most. But next time, keep an eye out. We'll be going through pretty much all your lures and techniques and the nuts and bolts of how we actually go and target these fish and putting these rods and reels into practice. So thank you very much again for watching, and we'll see you again next time.